curry bug.
Prince William is a fairly regular student, well, as regular as you can get when you're royal, I suppose, and he likes to live the student's life up at St Andrews. He lives in a house with a couple of flatmates, housemates, and it's on record that he says we live mostly on curries and pasta. I think there's a rather nice Indian restaurant there at St Andrews, and he has been known to go there. There were reports that Diana loved curry so much that she actually asked for 600 of them to be delivered to wherever she was on the night of her divorce. Now, I don't know if that's true, but I knew Diana reasonably well, and we didn't ever go out for a curry together, but she had a lot of Asian friends, and I'd be astonished if she hadn't enjoyed the odd vindaloo.
Royalty and curry is no new thing. The upper crust were regulars at one of Britain's first Indian restaurants.
Indian cooking has already lost its undeserved reputation of being the exclusive diet of ex-army officers from Pune and all points east. And you certainly don't need to come from east of Suez to know the kick of curried chicken and piquant chutneys.
Veeraswamy's was founded by an Englishman born in India and has been thriving since 1927. It was extremely posh.
Veeraswamy really looked like an Indian stately home. It looked like the inside of a Maharaja's palace. The waitresses were dressed as the maids of Indian Maharanis, and the butlers in those days were dressed like the Maharaja's butlers. Veeraswamy was situated in the heart of the theatre district. So after theatre, you had Vivian Leigh and Marlon Brando and Laurence Olivier. They were regulars there. Also, the then Prince of Wales used to come there very regularly, and he had his coat of arms hanging outside the door.
For us lesser mortals, the ordinary high street is where we get our spice fix, and the curry house phenomenon is one of Britain's most surprising success stories. Growing from 3 restaurants in the 20s to nearly 9,000 today, there is virtually no part of Britain that doesn't have a humble curry house or takeaway. Up until the Second World War, curry was virtually unheard of. It was during the 50s, 60s and 70s that immigrants from India, Pakistan and Bangladesh were encouraged to come to Britain to fill the labour shortages. In the early days, these new Britons tended to be young men who'd left their families behind and shared a longing for the food of their homeland. Forced to learn how to cook for themselves, some of the more enterprising saw an opportunity to open cafes and restaurants.
When you're an immigrant and you come to a new country, you're prepared to work much harder than if you'd stayed in your own country. And you take risks, and perhaps after a while you take a few gambles.
Curry created a little bit of gossip, really, when it first started. If you've been down to that strange restaurant down the road, it was that sort of attitude. There was something like aliens from outer space to start with.
Early restaurateurs were hampered by a lack of fresh ingredients and spices. A new type of cuisine soon evolved.
They would produce a big pot of sauce, maybe 3 pots, 3 different sauces, which by changing the garnish, changing the presentation and changing the meat you put in the sauce could be worked up into 50 different curries.
This one-pot method soon took off and enabled curry houses to provide a standard menu with quick, tasty meals that seduced the British taste buds.
Because the British were very fond of eating the curry with the rice, of course every dish had to be curry with a lot of gravy in it. So it's really not the food that the Indians eat at home, but a new cuisine evolved, which is British Asian or British Indian food.
Those restaurants were not meant for serving Asian customers. We didn't know what a vindaloo was, we didn't know what a madrasa. All these English people who were around us, the curry cognoscenti, they knew, and we didn't.
Come to the Oval Tandoori in the Brixton Road, near the Oval Tube.
During the 70s, what were regarded as Indian restaurants were popping up everywhere. But it was the Bangladeshis who were running the majority of our curry houses. With a fine judgment of the noble British character, they were canny enough to stay open after closing time.
Curry houses, because they were open much later than other restaurants, because they were pretty cheap, and because they were pretty much on every corner, filled the bill for a lot of people for post-pub, post-party fodder.
There was nothing else to do in this country once the pub shut. So
If there's a Balti house where they'll even serve you beer and give you a great big bowl of hot food with some great bread to dip into it, justifiably, it's bound to be a great success.
By the late 70s, Britain was crazy for curry. 3,000 restaurants were serving up mutant subcontinental food for a grateful nation. There was no stopping the curryholics who'd established a new ritual. After 10 pints in the pub, it was down to your local curry house. Whilst the Bengali restaurants were flourishing in the 70s, there was only one convenience food on the market that enabled us to whip up a curry in the comfort of our own home.
Vesta beef curry, with rice and beef, sultanas, onions, tomatoes, and a hint of apple.
What's a Vesta curry? I've never eaten a Vesta curry.
I used to have those as a student. They were absolutely disgusting.
Did that come in a tin? I can't remember if that came in a tin like dog food, or was it in a packet?
I'm having a problem even thinking back to this, because I must say I don't have any pleasant memories of Vesta at all.
My memories of Vestas are actually really, really nice.
By the early 80s, we had our Vestas and our little local late-night curry houses. But in 1982, along came someone who opened the doors to a whole new spice world. The Nigella Lawson of the naan, the Jalfrezi Jamie Oliver, Delia of dal.
Madhur Jaffrey is the Indian cook in my consciousness.
Madhur Jaffrey, all hail the Queen.
In this series, I'm going to show you how to cook all kinds of Indian food. Some of it you may be familiar with, the kind of food you've had in Indian restaurants, and some of it you've probably never eaten. It's the kind of food you get in Indian homes.
Well, Madhur Jaffrey was perfect, wasn't she? She was sort of exotic and motherly, and
She always looked perfect, absolutely pristine and perfect.
Attractive.
I remember thinking, gosh, that woman's so beautiful. And gosh, she's so brown with that lovely little bob.
Today, I'm going to show you how to make tandoori chicken.
English speaking and very Asian at the same time.
It made my mouth drool when I saw what she was preparing, and looking at her, and she's small and sassy and sweet and sexy, lovely.
And she was wonderfully engaging.
But Madhur Jaffrey was gorgeous, middle-aged eye candy.
Madhur Jaffrey is in fact a RADA-trained actress who collected her mother's recipes sent from India and turned them into cookery books.
I was on to my second cookbook, and then the BBC asked me to come and audition. It wasn't that, you come and teach our people how to cook.
And when it's hot, I'm going to put in some spices. I've done this technique before, popping hot spices.
Because Madhur Jaffrey is a very good food writer, I think she actually managed to convince a lot of people that it was within their capabilities to cook fine Indian food at home.
Amazing. And there's the sort of Indian Delia, very straightforward, very straight-laced, and just someone that really knows their stuff.
I wasn't trained as a chef, so I did things as they came to me, and the way I wrote my recipes were not as a chef. It was always assuming that the other person knew as little as I did, and that I would teach them everything as thoroughly as possible, because that's how I learn things.
To the hot oil.
Madhur awakened the nation's taste buds and established herself as Britain's original Spice Girl, with her weekly show pulling in 2 million curry-crazy viewers.
And now, this is ready to go into the oven.
They were, a real sign of the times. People would watch it just out of sheer fascination of what is she doing and what is that stuff she's putting in.
So I have here 2 tablespoons of ground cumin, 4 teaspoons of ground coriander.
There weren't any Asian faces on TV, so when people like Madhur Jaffrey did come onto the television, it was suddenly like you'd shout out to the house, and say, Mum, there's an Indian lady on TV and she's making curry.
The stuffing is sort of Persian-Indian mixture which I've worked out. I've tried it. It's quite wonderful. It's sweet. It's slightly sweet.
People in my house would sit around the TV just to see what she was making. And even if my dad was saying, well, I wouldn't do it like that, or I wouldn't do it like that, the fact that people were watching it and my family were watching it was good enough, because it represented the fact that there was an Asian face on TV doing really well.
It all looks terribly complicated.
It isn't. It really
Before you could say, here, these aniseed things are stuck in my teeth, Madhur Jaffrey became a household name.
She came on and treated us to a few, I suppose, roadside snacks. Little Indian tidbits.
It is how you can dip it in that coconut chutney.
Coconut chutney.
She was a very acceptable face, you know. She was very presentable. She knew how to present food.
And I'm going to make you a countryside chicken curry, Northern Kori Kuta.
With no rivals in the celebrity chef world, Madhur Jaffrey has remained this country's ultimate authority on Asian food.
To that I'm going to put 2 medium-sized sliced onions.
The book, you know, it's been in continuous print since the 80s. It's still in print. It's still selling. I think it's sold close to 1 million copies. It just goes on selling.
Unless you've been living on the moon for the last 20 years, most of you will have heard of, or tried, the infamous chicken tikka masala.
I quite like chicken tikka masala. It's a bit like owning up to reading one of those gossip magazines, isn't it, really?
I confess, when I ate meat, I have eaten a chicken tikka masala. And I apologise.
It accounts for almost 20% of all dishes ordered in restaurants. One manufacturer produces 10 tons of it a day for supermarkets. And in 2001, it was even used in a political speech about multiculturalism by a man with a tikka masala coloured beard.
Chicken tikka masala is now a true British national dish.
Thanks very much. Right, chicken tikka masala.
It's very aromatic. It's got real sort of come-hither quality. You know, you look at it and you think, oh, yeah, I quite like that.
It's quite endearing.
It's the entree into the world of curry.
It's got the richness, it's got the mildness, but with this little frisson of excitement from the spices.
It's delicious. I'm quite shocked, really.
It's Moorish. It's addictive.
It's not heavyweight enough. It's not hardcore enough.
That's delicious. Very good.
Like it, loathe it, or simply choose it because you can't remember what a Bombay duck is, chicken tikka masala has become the most popular dish in the curry class and is almost certainly a British invention. Ironically, the story of how it found its way onto our curry house menus has turned into an urban myth.
Sometime in the 70s, it is said, again, this is a matter for conjecture, but it is said that one Brit customer sent back his tandoori chicken and said, "This is horrid, this is too dry, I really don't care for it, will you do me some gravy?" Whereupon the chef combined creamy, yogurty sort of stuff and a bit of tomato puree, and kapow, there was chicken tikka masala, which we all liked lots.
Nice story, but is it fact or fiction?
There must be some truth in that. Like all urban myths, there's an element of truth.
Chicken tikka masala was invented here. That's one of the most popular ones, isn't it?
I'm very proud to have created many myths over time, and the Campbell's tomato soup one was one of mine. If you have a huge story about chicken tikka masala that makes it British, that makes it wonderful, is done close to home, people want to believe that they will.
I have had chicken tikka masala that tasted literally like a tin of tomato soup.
As far as I know, it just comes out of the kitchen from where I go for my local, but no, I wouldn't have a clue where it came from before that.
You cannot find chicken tikka masala in India. What you have to do is ask for butter chicken and you'll get something far better, and perhaps in 5 years' time everybody will be going around asking for butter chicken or murg makhani, as we call it.
I don't know who invented it, but whoever did it should have patented it, because it's one of those dishes that would have made someone an absolute fortune.
Going out for a curry not only tickles our taste buds, but all our senses. The ambience of your local 1970s and 80s curry house was a truly universal experience.
Then curry houses, had a very defined look going on to them.
Nearly always red carpet, red velvet seats.
Very, very darkly lit with lots of kind of little special corners where you could hide away.
You would, in these funny little booths, which were obviously sort of shrunk wrap versions of the Taj Mahal, where you were very close to whoever you were having a curry with, and they were dark, seductive, voluptuous colours.
Brass statues doing various things.
You'd find like a picture of some Indian guy or some Indian girl who could be, they're probably somebody really famous in India, but you'd no idea who they were.
They all had the same kind of slightly golden gilt chairs. They all had, here they are, the pink tablecloths. Where do you go to buy a pink tablecloth?
And perhaps out of common decency, we've not mentioned flock wallpaper.
I can vividly remember touching the furry walls of the Indian restaurant and being quite excited because we didn't have anything like that in our house.
Perhaps just to give drunk people something to do, play with it or comb it or something like that.
There was the flocked wallpaper impregnated with the smell of a million cigarettes.
Now, I think it might have been to cushion the sound of drunken idiots. Maybe that was it, soundproofing.
There was a restaurant in Manchester had flock wallpaper, and then when you went to the toilets, the corridor down there had sort of wood chip wallpaper, and it was like being in a Braille restaurant. If you were blind, you'd know which part of the restaurant you were in just by touching the wall. You could feel your way to a toilet. Wood chip, fine, I know where I'm going. Feel your way back. Yep, now I'm back in the restaurant. Flock wallpaper, there you go, and that was helpful.
I think the reason the flock wallpaper was there was because the grandparents of the people who opened those restaurants in the 70s were working in the English clubs in India in the 30s, and flock wallpaper was everywhere. It was a very expensive commodity and it was used to suggest wealth. So they brought that all the way back from India and transplanted it into the high street in Britain.
Today, flock is virtually extinct, and going out for a curry can be a completely different dining experience.
Suddenly, I think probably around 1981, the Bombay Brasserie opened. And the Bombay Brasserie was the first really smart, really expensive Indian restaurant. And that shook everyone up.
The Bombay Brasserie offered top-class food and service in a spacious restaurant decked out in colonial splendour that has changed little since it opened. Today's new wave of upmarket restaurants are leaders in chic and cutting-edge design.
The thing about kind of Indian cuisine now is that you do get Indian restaurants that are the kind of Gordon Ramsay of India. I mean, we are talking Michelin star top cuisine, and so the decor has got to respond to that market as well, because they're competing with other kind of Michelin starred restaurants. So it is very clean, very contemporary.
Back on the high street, a modern setting for our regular Friday, Saturday night curry sessions has only started to emerge in the last few years.
Well, there's a definite move towards homogenisation right throughout society, and it's happening in Indian restaurants. So you don't get the real Indian restaurant experience. You could be going into any cafe.
I like the light furniture and very light airy spaces and the veneered wood floors, and I think it's nice, makes a nice change from the traditional Indian.
Don't do it, it's a disaster. Don't even think about it, because you'll lose what makes you great if you do that.
I'm depressed by the death of the traditional Indian restaurant on an aesthetic level, but then again you've got to applaud it, because it just simply means that now the fact that it's an Indian restaurant is actually very unimportant to most people. It's just going to a restaurant that serves a sort of food.
And as long as some of the fundamental tenets are adhered to, a hot plate that's too hot will come and you can burn your hand on it, a little revolving thing with lime pickling, as long as certain things are kept traditional.
But no, I am now making a direct appeal on behalf of the Bring Back the Gorgeous Looking Curry House party. I want to see flock wallpaper, I want to see booths, I want to see rich dark colours.
Okay, we've got the picture. Anybody fancy a pint? No programme on British curry would be complete without mentioning its most common companion, a cold glass of lager.
Children grow up and leave home. Women cheat on you or go off you. But lager and curry are always there for you. Reliable, satisfying. It's a combo that delivers. God bless it.
You have to drink lager with the curry, don't you? You have to.
Beer and curry is like strawberries and cream.
It is a combination that works. It's a bit like posh and Becks, it has to stay together.
Like Cheech and Chong, you know what I mean? Hale and Face.
It's like cheese and crackers, cheese and apple.
Sonny and Cher.
It just seems to go hand in hand.
The two marry beautifully, who knows why?
Madras and lager. Goes together.
So I'm actually more of a kind of yogurt juice man with my curry, actually. Very traditional.
No woman, no hope, no curry. And worse still, a choice of only 2 alcoholic beverages, Cinzano Bianco or Advoca. It's a human tragedy. No lager. Sir, there is nothing unmanly in howling like a hungry prairie dog. No lager.
Lager does seem to be the most popular drink to have with a curry, but is it a good combo?
It's quite a bland flavour, so that's why and these are quite distinct flavours, so that's why I think the two work.
Gas and loads of food do not make good for the stomach. You could have all serious implications later.
There's something in there, I don't know what content it is in the beer that actually calms the curry down.
Hey, it's what for you, isn't it?
No, it's fine, is this? You know, it's all right.
It sails down. It's like an angel on your tonsils.
Hey, what is that? Small pickle? Oh,
Chilly, I think.
yes, you're looking really flush.
When you're warming up to a thirst. Carling, thirst-shattering flavour.
For a long time I didn't realise that if you're having a very hot curry, it makes it worse if you drink the beer during the curry.
2 pints of skull, a chicken biryani for you, sir, and for Hagar the Horrible, our house speciality, Arctic Moose Vindaloo, extra hot.
You must hold off until the end. If you have the lager during the curry, you really could be heading for serious injury.
Box of chili. This is what you got to eat. The raita. You mustn't drink this or water, because what water does, it speeds the heat of the curry down in your stomach. You need something soft. That's why they eat their rice. That's why quite a lot of people eat bananas with curry. And that's why they eat the yogurt base, to stop the heat.
Beer has been associated with curry in Britain as long as anyone can remember, but the link can be traced back to the famous Veeraswamy restaurant in 1927, soon after it first opened.
The King of Denmark used to come once a year, and his favourite was duck vindaloo with Carlsberg beer, and he was amazed he couldn't get it here. So he shipped a barrel every year to Veeraswamy, saying that whenever I'm here, I want to have duck vindaloo with Carlsberg.
He must have been the first person to say, "Can I have a vindaloo and 3 pints of lager, please?"
However, drinking European lagers with curry were not to everyone's taste.
I remember when I tried out these lager brands in pubs or in Indian restaurants, I found them really difficult to drink. They were fizzy, they were harsh, they were bland. And particularly with Indian food, I found that it made it difficult to drink and difficult to eat. So I couldn't eat as much Indian food as I wanted to, and I couldn't drink as much as I wanted to. So that's when, as a student at Cambridge and here in London, that I came up with this idea of one day bringing over my own beer from India that would be extra smooth and less gassy, and it would accompany Indian food and appeal to ale drinkers.
There are certain watershed moments in life, and many of mine have actually happened in Indian restaurants. And one of them in particular was a day when, instead of ordering 3 pints of lager with the curry, which I always did when I was a student, I ordered 2, because when you get into your late 30s, you just can't handle 3 pints of lager. And I thought, my youth is over. And I thought that in an Indian restaurant.
But the beer-curry combo can have a downside.
I've witnessed some seriously bad behaviour in curry, none from myself, I should point out.
I've sat in restaurants and seen people sort of doing Abu stuff.
Yeah, gizzard, I'll handle this. Oh, Sabu, come here.
And it's so offensive, and if you quote me out of context on that and just use a soundbite of me going Abu, I will kill you.
It was seen as a dumb thing to be rowdy in an Indian restaurant.
If you get a load of blokes together, and that doesn't matter if you go in an Indian restaurant, a Chinese restaurant, an English restaurant, they're going to behave like animals.
In the 1970s and 1980s, there was certainly a stronger undercurrent of racism in Britain.
Well, they must have got so bored with all of the same old jokes.
Curry rice? Aye, curry rice, that's it, chicken, chicken. Yeah.
At the end of the day, you need to make money, and I think first-generation immigrants, when they came out here, that was the primary aim, to make money. And yes, they had to swallow sometimes uncomfortable scenes, but you keep your head down, you bite the bullet, and you deliver the goods.
Far be it from me to cast aspersions on your undoubted talent as a mime artist, but that's not chicken. It's prawn.
Prawn?
Man. Prawn?
But to me, I think it's the most foolish thing someone can do is be cheeky to staff who are just about to cook your food behind the scenes.
What a ridiculous thing to do, offend the people who are cooking your food.
You've got to remember, waiters are the most dangerous people in the world. Because, there is that interim period from the kitchen to the table. So be careful what you say to your waiter next time.
However, in 1998, a group of comedians pricked the nation's conscience.
Hey, moviegoers! After tonight's feature, why not take your taste buds on a culinary journey? We offer you the authentic taste of England right here in India. Let our English chef delight you with his traditionally prepared dishes, including potatoes, chicken, and also peas. All at
Burton's English Restaurant, 222 Viceroy Place, Mumbai, just round the corner from this cinema.
Going for an English, by goodness gracious me, was one of the funniest things I think most of us have ever seen. The cleverness of turning it around, being in Bombay, and a bunch of sort of well-to-do Asian Indian kids going out to an English restaurant.
One of the most common expressions you hear is "let's go for an Indian." And these guys say one word and change it around, "let's go for an English."
So how come every Friday night we end up here, eh?
Because that's what you do, You go out, you get tanked up on lassis, and you go for an English. It wouldn't be a Friday night if we didn't go for an English,
It's kind of compared to the parrot sketch by Monty Python.
A work of genius. Inspired. Really, really brilliant.
Anyway, I love English food here.
Get off, you just fancy the waiters, innit?
When I first read Going for an English, I was absolutely taken aback. I have never ever laughed so much. And it was, I think to everyone it was obvious that this was a particularly poignant sketch.
All right, Mike. We're ready to order now.
I've been up here and said, "Bring me the hottest thing you got on the menu. No messing. Come on, asbestos throat."
What's the blandest thing on the menu?
Scampi is particularly bland, sir.
I love that.
So when they said, "Bring me the blandest thing you've got," it struck a chord.
We used to see that happen all the time, when basically in the West Midlands, white drunks would pour out of pubs, go into a Balti house, and then call a raise Cain and generally show disrespect.
Hey, what's your problem, Sonny, We come here every week and spend lots of money, You should be grateful,
Shut up, leave it. He's all right, he's waiter, he's a mate. I say, Jamil, you're my mate, ain't you, Jamil?
It's done a couple of things as far as I'm concerned. It's made people realise that there are funny Indians out there. And it's also made people question their behaviour in certain situations.
It was so sharp, the way that was all expressed, but made amusing. The teeth were drawn.
Hey, Jamas, what have you got that is not totally tasteless?
The steak and kidney pies,
And I think most people that saw that just were yourself, but you were pretty damn appalled at the same time.
I think it might sting if you're one of the white people that behave that way.
You might have ordered too much, sir.
What? Hey, Clive of India, who bloody asked you, Please the bloody food or do a mooney.
Is English food bland? I'm not going to answer that.
And if you've got a thing for leaking brown paper bags and tinfoil containers with biro scrawled on them, it's a takeaway for you.
Now, your dinner.
That's right. I've got some Indian takeaway.
Then will you kindly eat it in the kitchen with the extractor fan full on? The last time, this upholstery reeked of vindaloo for a week. Good night, Jerry.
The great thing about Indian takeaway is the convenience of it, because when the cravings are upon you, nothing better than just picking up that phone.
A couple of
cans of beer in the fridge, phone up and order a nice Ruby Murray to be delivered around to your house. Put your feet up and just forget about everything. I love it. Love takeaways.
Surprisingly, I often have an Indian takeaway.
I live behind an Indian restaurant at the moment, so when I get home from work sometimes they're all cooking out the back and then the door's open, so I just shout, hi guys, usual, they're over, bring it over, deliver it, it's absolutely perfect.
Takeaway's a glorious thing because you get half it down your neck and go to bed, and then if you wake up in the morning you don't have to brush your teeth because breakfast is there, the cold curry.
What's your flavour? Tell me what's your flavour?
Cold curry eaten for breakfast is regularly my Sunday breakfast.
I can't remember having any cold curry for breakfast because I don't think there was ever any left. But no, it's like having a drink first thing in the morning, can't do that either.
I can't face a cold curry breakfast before 11.
Morning, Sarge. Rough night, was it?
Well, don't rub it in, Bob. You know I hate these early morning shifts.
Want a cup of tea?
No, I think I need something a bit stronger. It sometimes tastes better because it's like it's sort of marinated. It's infused.
I can admit now, personally, I have eaten cold curry, the mother-in-law's. And by the time we say, oh God, I'll heat this up, go on, you finished it.
I've eaten curry cold for breakfast more times than I can remember, actually. It tastes better cold.
It's one of the few dishes that I have had for lunch, for dinner, for late supper, and for breakfast. God bless it.
Yeah. Will my supper to your satisfaction?
Not bad, not bad. And next time get madrasas at a Vindaloo, will you?
These days, our appetite is becoming more and more insatiable for all things curry.
The chicken korma naan.
What's happened is that this extraordinary passion that we have for curry in Indian restaurants has suddenly, actually probably rather later than we might have expected, filtered into all kinds of other areas.
I've had a bad boy Bombay. Bombay bad boy, I mean. Bad boy Bombay, Bombay bad boy.
I don't think anyone's eating the curry pot noodle and thinking,
Inevitably, when you have a cuisine that's a success, you're going to have lots of companies and individuals jumping on the bandwagon with their own brand of spice. I think I saw pizza the other day. You can have chicken tikka pizza. I was like, what? No.
Tikka masala flavoured twiglets are probably the next thing. I don't know. I mean, chicken tikka Cornish pasties I've seen. Now, please. I mean, come on.
Asian food is constantly evolving. We now spend over £400 million a year on Indian ready meals. A new trend in supermarkets is the fresh deli curries and the takeaway kits. Now you can pick up a takeout with your daily loaf. During the last 5 years, Asian cuisine itself has finally come of age, especially in the capital's shishi restaurants.
I think the posh end of the market of Indian restaurants is great because it means that it becomes more accessible, it goes mainstream, people begin to open their minds up to various different foods, especially Indian food.
The term Indian cuisine or curry is almost an insult. There is a huge variety. It's one of the richest and most interesting cuisines in the world. And thankfully, we're now beginning to appreciate that, and restaurants are reflecting it.
Tamarind and Zyka in London are the only two Indian restaurants ever to be awarded the Michelin star, the Oscars of the food world.
I think that's where we're going now. That's the next route down the Indian spice trail, is finding chefs who are prepared to throw off the chains that India's put around them all these years with fixed menus and break loose and have some fun.
One such chef is Atul Kochur, who, after getting Tamarind its Michelin star, went on to open his own restaurant in the heart of Mayfair.
In my
food, people can taste spices individually. The way we cook it here, we try to emphasize the main ingredient first, and all the spices which we add in, they only support the main ingredient. That's the essence of Indian food. You can't overspice anything. People ask me, how much spice to use when you're making a curry? And the answer is very simple. You don't use any spice more than you would use salt and pepper in your food. So it's as simple as that.
While the upmarket restaurants cater for the select few, there are some Asian entrepreneurs who plan to take on the high street giants. Masala Zone has been called the Wagamamas of Asian cuisine and is an offshoot of Britain's oldest surviving restaurant, Veeraswamy's.
We, as a company, have been thinking for a long time that we've done the top end of the market and we should really do the mid-market food, but real Indian food at about 10 to 12 pounds per head. And so Masala Zone was born, but also in a very stylish canteen-like atmosphere. And you can be in and out in about half an hour.
That's a kind of food that in America they're now calling fast casual. So it's like one step up from fast food, but it's one step down from your more traditional restaurant.
Every city I know in the country has the most amazing sort of bricklaying curry house. And for that to become a concept and too commercial, it will dampen the sort of excitement.
2003 saw the launch of Tiffin Bites, an Asian food concept for the lunchtime niche market.
Some people have dubbed us as the Indian pret-a-manger, and what we are actually is a fast food Indian outlets.
Amongst the range of hot and cold snacks, the unique concept lies in the Tiffin box meal, based on the traditional stainless steel 3-layered Indian lunchbox.
And what we've done is we've got our own tiffin box, which is exactly the same. It's actually from India, the tiffin box. It's microwavable, and we actually have a balanced meal in there. So you have a meat dish, a vegetable dish, and I think this one example is a prawn masala tiffin. And it's all about bringing that level of authentic Indian food that you only find maybe in Wembley or Southall, in the high Indian conurbation areas in London or Birmingham or Leicester. And we wanted to bring that across for lunchtimes and evening. People do experience that.
The company have 2 outlets in our capital, but have the grand plan of opening 52 nationwide in the next 5 years. Lunchtimes may never be the same again. Curry and pop found its own anthem in the late 90s when a certain pop song stormed into the charts at number 2.
Vindaloo.
Yeah, that Vindaloo song. What was all that about?
That's what curries are about. Different people, different shapes and sizes, just getting on and giving it lies down the street going for a curry.
Vindaloo was actually the unofficial football anthem for the '98 World Cup, created by novelty pop band Fat Les.
Well, Andrew, it started off much more song about English culture. So I had this line, which was me and me mum and me dad and me gran.
Me and me mum and me dad and me gran went off to Waterloo.
Which is a reference to the Battle of Waterloo. What rhymes with Waterloo? Me and me mum and me dad and me gran and a bucket of Vindaloo.
Me and me mum and me dad and me gran and a bucket of Vindaloo.
It was that daft.
It was a big banter on the football terraces, and it was sort of a theme song on the coach for the England supporters.
On the terraces, that's all they want to sing.
So I just love the idea of ostensibly white racist English football fans singing Vindaloo out on the street. I thought it was brilliant.
There's a woman in it as well that's just bladdered and she's trying to keep on her stilettos and she's giving it this, trying to keep up.
She was brilliant. Absolutely everyone remembers the drunken lady.
It's one of those really annoying songs that gets in your brain and you kind of find yourself humming it thinking, what am I doing?
What we were saying was it's celebratory, it's great, you know, everyone can join in and it's a laugh, which it was.
This is amazing that it went on and sold thousands of copies on the back of something that made you feel ill.
There is no doubt that curry is now as British as fish and chips or a Sunday roast. The key to the success of Britain's multi-million-pound curry industry lies in its ability to adapt, diversify and move forward. Whether you get your spice fix from your local curry house, takeaway, supermarket or packet of crisps, curry will continue to be a part of everyday life in Britain.
It's sort of part of our culture now. We tend to feel Indian food is British, it's part of the Brits.
If you do take the Indians out of Britain or Indian culture out of Britain, it's not Britain anymore.
Everybody seems to love curry, and I think the people that don't love curry or are the people that haven't tried it.
It's not going to leave my life, and I'll fight any man who says it is.
Asian culture or Indian culture has got so much more to give, and if one part of it has been embraced so much, then it means that there's avenues for the rest of the culture and our background to be accepted as well.
It's part of British life, the curry and Indian food. It's wonderful.